Welcome, everyone, to another podcast. Today we have Gregory Hopper. He's a singer songwriter from Albany, New York. And his focus is rock based music with lyrics that deliver genuine and relatable emotion. Now, that would be either, damn, I wrote the song, or yay, the song. His vocal style has been described as deep, unadorned, sharp, and soulful with the ability to cut to your core. Now, Gregory, can you give us a little bit of backstory of who Gregory Hopper is, and when was the first time that you felt that music was the way to go?
Sure. And thanks for having me on, Chris. I really appreciate this.
You're very welcome.
I think I started playing guitar around 12. But I think by the time I was 8 years old, I had started playing a little violin in elementary school. And I loved to sing, so I would sing along, although nobody ever wanted to actually hear me do that. And then it kind of grew. So, I think even when I was young, I wanted to play guitar. I'm the youngest of 4 children, and I'm quite a bit younger than my oldest sibling, my sister, who was 11 years older than me. And I got to see her playing guitar. It wasn't something that she continued with, but as the youngest, I got to see her with this electric guitar, and I was fascinated. And I already loved music. Music was big in my family. They listened to a very eclectic mix from, your classic Kenny Rogers country all the way up into like the Cars for new wave.
The Bangles.
I had brothers that listen. Oh yeah, I had brothers that listened to heavy metal. I really got the full spectrum. And so I've always loved music, but I think I really started focusing around age 12 when I picked up a guitar for the first time.
Wow, that's amazing. So, talking about how you had siblings that were much older than you, 11 years. When I was born, I had sisters and brothers that were more than 10, 11 years older than I was. So, basically, growing up as a younger child at a 7, and I'm the only one that does music. I did have siblings that were in bands in high school, and one sister played the clarinet. But I think right after she left high school, everyone abandoned music. And then I used to sing different genres and their vinyl albums. We're talking about way back in the 70s here. Shh, don't give my age. And my brother and I would sing Jesus Christ Superstar, How to Succeed in Business, any of these other albums done with, created in the vinyl.
Yeah.
But I'm the only one to actually continue because now I'm a tenor and I love music. I love interviewing artists and musicians on my podcast, and I'm now over 116 episodes now. And I loved it that you are here. And I love the backgrounds that a lot of my guests have. And they're like electric guitars on the wall. Could you please explain these 3 guitars on your back wall?
Sure. So this room, this is an addition to my house that had been completed right before COVID. So it was pretty barren in here, and my wife kept looking at me going, "Are you going to do something with this room? It's so it's so plain." And I finally said, "Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna hang up a few of my guitars back here." So actually, it started out with some of my most played guitars because I wanted them on hand, but I realized quickly I didn't really want them hanging on the wall either. So now they're kind of a more eclectic mix. So this metallic blue one here is a Epiphone Dot semi-hollow body.
Nice.
I really love that guitar. I played that. I've played that in multiple bands, so that's actually been a road guitar for quite a while. It's still in great shape. It's still ready to go. I just don't play it as much as I used to. The one in the middle is actually pretty special. That's a PV T25. PV only made those for a few years in the early 80s.
Hmm.
They're kind of a specialized electronic system in those that hadn't really been used before. If you turn the volumes and the tones all the way up, they sound like humbuckers, and if you turn them down into the low ranges, they
Oh,
become
wow.
single coil pickups. So it's very versatile, and one of my favorites. I've had that for a long time. The red one is just there to look pretty. That's a lower cost Firefly semi hollow body acoustic electric that it actually sounds pretty good. I would say it's about $170 guitar. It actually sounds really nice, but doesn't see much action, and it's more wall hanging now. But you can see there's also a whole stand full of the guitars I use in the studio back there, and a bass, and yeah, I've got about 10 or 12 guitars in this room right now.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, talk about electric guitars. I actually, I don't know this person, but I know somebody who literally has a 6-net guitar and they play every single fret. And it's amazing. And I'm thinking, I did, I still have it. We have a music store here called Long and McQuaid's, and you can get Gibson, Taylor, you can get Stratocasters. Think I saw one Vantage. And you know what the most expensive electric guitar is? I know bass guitars are 4 strings, but many of them had more than 4, so they're electric guitars, not basses. But they still played the same way. And the most expensive there was $6,000, and the
Yeah,
cheapest one was $500. And Gibsons,
prices
I
have gone
believe,
way up.
are expensive. Yeah. But you're saying that many of these they just doesn't matter how cheap the guitar is, sounds really good. So what's the purpose on spending money on an $8,000 bass guitar, electric guitar, or spending money on a 400 guitar when it just sounds the same? Do you think guitarists like yourself can tell if someone were to
Oh
take a
yeah,
guitar and they
there's
won't tell you how much it is? Could you tell how much they spent on it by the sound?
to a point, right? If you spend, let's say, $2,000 these days, probably on a high-end name brand electric guitar, that's probably the pinnacle of sound, right? I'm a lot of people argue with me about that, but that's my belief. I've been doing this for 30 years. I've got enough background to know.
Okay,
But
shut
where
up.
it really comes into play over that cost is what they call like fit and finish. So how much time was taken by hand to really dress and properly set up that guitar? What kind of paint and finish is on that guitar? Those things cost a lot of money. A
Oh, wow.
$2,000 guitar can go to 6,000 just because of its paint job, maybe because of the veneer they put on the front of it. Wood types make a difference in sound, but also at some point they just become really nice looking, and you pay for that, right? So that's why you have such a range these days. And I think a lot of our overseas manufacturers have gotten a lot better at creating quality products, and
Wow.
and they can look nice too. So there's you give up a lot when you drop into like the $500 range. You give up a lot in your electronics and the actual sound of the electronics. But yeah, you get into $2,000, which is a very expensive guitar, by the way. I mean, I'm not really advocating going out and spending $2,000 on a guitar. I think you can get very good quality around $500 or $600, where it's a professional quality sound. So
Professional musician like yourself, especially guitarist, um, and you have experience. So you said 30 years experience performing as a rock guitarist, solo acoustic act, and you're a lead vocalist over the last 2 decades. Um, you sort of treat your guitars as a pet, like if you had a dog or a cat,
best
you would make
friends.
sure everything's okay. So with a guitar, and that you have even ones in the background, you mentioned PV. I know PV make also sound equipment too, and mostly I haven't seen what any concert I've seen or anybody playing any musician, it's always a PV. Is there a reason for that, or do you think it's just that it just happens that there's a PV? But I'm pretty
The-
sure that this.
These days, I think PV is a good quality,
Mhm.
lower cost brand. They're not really the pinnacle anymore, although they had their spotlight probably in the 80s, early 90s, but they still make good quality products. So it's a trusted name making a good product at a good price. I think that's probably why you see it. Um,
Now, blue guitars and red guitars and any guitar that's painted, and to increase the guitar's value by the paint, do you think the guitar's value is because of the way it's like what product it's made out of, like wood, for instance?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I mean, there are better quality woods, and there's different characteristics of the different kinds of woods. So you get deeper tones, or you get better, sustain. You just a lot of it comes in with necks. It becomes a matter of taste for the guitar player and the feel. But yeah, definitely the woods, and these days you can't always have some of the woods that we used before because of sustainability, and because they've just been so taken out of the environment that they can't be replaced again. So yes, that is, a lot of people covet some of those things, but again, there's great replacements these days for those woods. So it's not like we have to say, oh, well, I can't live without that. Well, you can. There's good replacements that sound great. So
I'm pretty sure, but playing a light guitar and playing one that's heavy, is there a difference in sound? Yeah.
not always in sound, but there can be,
Mhm.
right? But mostly if you're playing that guitar on stage, and say I'm playing a 13-pound guitar on stage as opposed to maybe a 7-pound, that is a lot of weight to carry around all night. And I've heard people like Gene Simmons say,
Mm,
him being out there as a live act, it's more like he's taking the wear and tear of an athlete on stage. And
mm.
that becomes true at some point. You're bouncing around, you're jumping, you're trying to be energetic, you're trying to get people involved, and you're also carrying around 13 pounds on your neck. You get sore. You get sore.
Yeah. So talking about the paint and then the wood and
Mhm.
then the feeling, is this all aesthetics? Like, for instance, when I see a lot of concerts, especially Pink Floyd, and I think Quiet Riot and all these other metal bands, like, I don't know what you think. You've been involved in music for 30 years. You played the guitar and with vocalists for 20 years and all these things going on. So you're treating your guitars like pets and whatever. And then you're here and you're watching like an old concert from the 70s, and one of the guitarists take their guitar and they bang it and crash it and wreck it. What's that all about?
It's a stage show. I think,
Mhm.
if you go back to one of my favorites, The Who, um,
Yeah.
they were doing those things because people paid attention. It's hard to differentiate, and that's like one of the biggest things is what's going to make people stop and listen to you.
Mhm.
There's a lot of musicians, and the longer time goes on, you can say we have a lot more platforms these days for people to hear us, but the reality is we also have a lot more competition, right? So everybody could be a recording artist these days. We all have that ability. If you own a Mac, you own GarageBand. If you go buy a PC, you can get a free, DAW to do your own tracking from your home, and you can do it relatively cheaply. Not always the best quality. It's hard. It's a hard job. Like nobody will argue with that. But it's become this. What is the differentiator? In those days, how crazy could I be on stage without chasing people away, but making more people want to come in and see what you were doing? And so maybe that wasn't even there. Sometimes it was a good instrument, but sometimes it's just, like if you have somebody paying for your instruments, well, it's not so bad to have to go off and smash one. especially if it gets you 100,000 more people listening to your music, you know.
And then 100,000 more guitars to smash just because you have the money. You have to,
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
what if, and you may not even know that they're probably smashing guitars that belong to like the greats. Sorry,
I've had a lot
stretched
of
it.
work done. I mean, because I do treat my guitars like old friends, because I do have trouble giving up a guitar. Most of my the longest I've owned guitars are usually electrics. I do kind of recycle the acoustics. They have a shelf life a lot of times. With the $300-400 acoustic isn't gonna survive the road for 10 years and keep on kicking. They start to sound buzzy and bad after a while, and there's only so much you can do with them. But in electric, you can usually have someone work on. You can have that thing brought back up to, you know, its original quality. So I have some really great you know, service people in this area that I use, and I've been bringing these guitars in forever. And people look at me like I'm crazy when I walk into the store with 6-7 guitars for setups and
Wow.
various repairs, and they're like, well, what's going on here? Like, no, I just want them ready. I just want them ready when it's next time to use them.
So if there's no difference in sound with guitar sometimes, if I wanted to pick up a bass guitar, a regular guitar, or maybe just an acoustic guitar, do you think it's an easy instrument for me to learn?
I think these days it's as easy as it's ever been to get good information, to get yourself engaged, which I think is the hardest part. I mean, a lot of people tell you that, you know, oh, I couldn't do it, you know, it was just too hard. Well, there's a level, right? How good did you want to be, and how much time do you put into it? It's like anything. The amount of time you put in is what you get out of it. And I think that there's really great, like when I learned from books, and I learned, you know, with teachers, but doing like the Hal Leonard method, you know, that was very popular, still is popular. And, you know, you do 12, 13 books, and they say, oh, you learned all of this theory about the basics of guitar. Like you have a great base to build on at that point. But it's not engaging. So you lose a lot of people really early with something like that, because it's just, you're not learning songs that you love. You're learning Little Brown Jug and Green Sleeves. You know, it's not the kind of
And
thing
Smoke
that,
on the Water.
well, no, that's the thing. Hal Leonard
No.
wasn't going to teach you Smoke on the Water. They were going to stick to classics.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
So when you finally reach that point, like I did, where you say, okay, now I have this great bass. I can go and play with any group of people, but they're going to ask me to play a song and I don't know any, you know,
Oh,
like
wow.
that's, it was later in life that I really started picking up cover songs and really fully engaging cover songs. And then once I did, it was like, well, this is fun, and I want to be in cover bands. So I started playing with a lot of cover bands and doing, you know, I did a lot of 90s rock. I did a lot of classic rock. And then, you know, but I still loved acoustic, which was really my roots, you know, where I wanted to be. I loved blues music, and I loved the sound of an acoustic solo. And so that's kind of when I went back and said, hey, I want to learn how to sing better, because I would sing and play all the time, but people would be like, you should just play. Don't sing. Like, oh, okay. I guess I'm not insulted by that. I'll go out and learn how to do this. So I went and took vocal lessons and really kind of concentrated on, hey, I could be a solo performer of some quality if I really learned how to do this.
Are you familiar with the works of Charles Berthold or Davy 504? These are super YouTube channels, and they teach you how to play the bass. I've seen several of them. There's actually another guy on YouTube who actually says that he's got the best masterclass for learning the guitar. And I paid, I think, $400 whatever for an acoustic guitar that my friend had, and 2 days later I sold it right back because it's not for me. But nowadays I'm like, it looks so easy going dun, 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 dun. And then I heard a really good version of New Light by John Mayer, done by just a guy with a regular guitar, great voice. And I'm like, wow. Do you think it's possible if you wanted to, and since you've been doing this for 30 years, if you wanted to, do a guitar version of Bohemian Rhapsody, or would it be difficult for you?
This is funny. I did. So I was regularly performing, playing out with my band. And then it was March 2020. And we had just played a gig, but we were already getting nervous about COVID.
Mhm.
Like, what's this going to mean for us? And little did we know that was the last gig we played. So
Oh,
we've managed to stay together as a recording group, but we were benched for a couple of years. And during that time, like a lot of artists did as an outlet, I started setting up in my studio and doing these recordings of just me and putting them out on a regular basis. When I started, I thought this will be fun for a week. And then it turned into a whole series. So I
wow.
called it it's called the Songs from Isolation series. And
Wow.
I think I did about 72 cover songs in the first grouping, and I did one every day for 72 days. And then I kind of got burnt out on it. We still hadn't come out of COVID lockdowns.
Hmm.
But then the next year came, and I said, I kind of missed this. I think I'm going to do it again. So by the time I finished with series 1 and series 2, I had 152 songs.
Oh, wow.
And most of them were cover songs I had never played before. So I had been challenging myself to just kind of in a day sit down, learn the basic melodies of a song, probably songs that I know in my head from the radio, things like that, but that I had never learned to play on guitar or sing. And I did 152 songs. So the answer, the long answer to your short question is
Terrific.
probably if I put and what it takes really for me to do something like that is not to stay too structured, to really figure out how I want to arrange a song so that I can perform it as a solo artist. Because when you just sit down on acoustic, you have to be very thoughtful about, there's some things here I can't do, right? There's big moments in this song that can't happen with one person. How do I take on that piece of it? And so yes, I mean, and that all comes into what do you want to get out of it? And what I usually want to get out of something like that is the original melody and feel, because they're very recognizable songs. But I also want to feel good about what I did with that song at the end too. I'm going to try to be as true to the song as I can without sacrificing big pieces of it because I might not be able to pull it off by myself. And I think that's okay. I think that's what makes them special.
Yeah, I can't imagine during the pandemic how difficult it was for you to do music online. But people like Chris Mann, they started a YouTube channel, and Randy Rainbow, and many of them during the pandemic said, well, if I can't perform, I'll just create a YouTube channel. And
Yeah.
people were paying money to see opera singers online. I know one
Yeah.
lady, she did that. And also the pandemic hit opera singers hard because they could no longer perform. But what was that like for you and your family? Like, I know you were doing a lot of music, but is that what kept you sane and kept
Oh,
your
definitely.
anxiety low?
Yeah, I think, music has always been a really great outlet for me. It's
Mhm.
what drives me still to do it, is I have this great passion for music, but it also it is this outlet. It's very calming for me. It's like I could be having the worst day of my life, and if I go pick up a guitar and sit down and sing a couple of songs to myself, just sitting in a room by myself, it changes my whole mood. It really does.
Yeah.
It's transforming. Music's transforming. And that's why non-musicians really connect sometimes with songs, right? And they'll tell, like, I can't remember how many times I've read comments about songs that I love that people say, you know, this song saved my life. They're not just saying that. They really feel that, you know. And sometimes when you sit down and perform for yourself, you get that same feeling, like, I needed this right now, and it was the perfect time.
Yeah. During I think it was the years before the pandemic, I started singing online. There's this app called the Smooth Sing app, and you can sing with people all around the world. And singing was an outlet because I had gone through a relationship breakup, and it was abusive, and I needed something as an outlet. So it was singing. So I sang. And I know sometimes when I get angry or frustrated, I forget that if I start singing, it might help me with my anger. So I thought I'm just going to go back into my studio here and just start singing again. So I'll start doing that. And the podcast has really inspired me, learning from people like you, wonderful songwriters like you, and other bands, and also have like a repertoire of songs that I like to sing. And Greg, do you have a playlist of songs that you sing on a regular basis when you perform? Do you go, my first song is, or do you just say, okay, how about one from Johnny Cash? Jane, you know, do you do that?
It's interesting. So I really love building set lists.
Mm-hmm.
They don't stay the same, right? They're going to change from time to time.
Oh.
And I'd leave it up to myself to you know, call an audible as I go and say, no, I'm not doing this one. I'll move to that. A lot of times that comes with feel, right?
Mm-hmm.
I usually do like to pick a song that I like to lead with. I've always been a fan of this Bon Jovi song that I've always led in with.
Nice.
But I might show up that day and go, I don't know if I'm feeling this. Like my voice might not feel quite right, or my hand's a little stiff. And
Same
do
here.
I really want to start out with something this tough? Like, usually those are great songs to catch people's attention, right? You sit down, you get into the main riff, and everybody stops to listen because it's a song everyone knows. What if I'm going to screw it up? Like, that's always in the back of my head. No matter how many times I play out, no matter how many times I perform something, it's always this, and it's not stage fright for me anymore. It's more of just this nervous energy, but it's also knowing myself, knowing that my voice doesn't sound quite right that day, or my hands don't feel quite as limber as they should. You've got to be able to play through that, but you might not want to start with that tough song. You might find a 3-chord song to kind of ease you into the day.
I can imagine that, Greg. But what do you do if your audience seems bored and uninterested? Is there a song that you play to get them reinvigorated with Greg Hopper's music?
Yeah, it's interesting when, especially with covers. If I'm going out to play by myself, I tend to lean on a lot of strumming, right? If I'm playing 35, 40 songs in a night, I'm not being very intricate with my guitar playing. I'm usually leaning on my voice to pull people in. And I'm going to pick songs that I think connect with people because they connect with me. So, you know, things that I can be very soulful or can sing. I'm always, and I'm trailing off, but one of the big things for me is being genuine about the things I'm singing, because I think as soon as I move away from that, I'm not believable, the song's not believable, and people aren't engaged. So I've always said, when I write for myself, it doesn't have to come from my own experiences and my own history. Like, the words don't, and the story doesn't exactly have to line up, but it does have to be believable. It does have to like fit me it can't be something so wild that, I would never be involved in. Like, that story makes no sense for me. So I try to be very genuine about the things I'm going to do. And so even when I'm picking cover songs, I tend to lean towards the things that make sense for me, that have that kind of, connection. Whether or not it's my story, I can connect with the story in some way. So I always say, when I write a song, I'm telling a story, but the story could mean something different for you than it does for me. And I want to leave that kind of space in a song for you to interpret it the way you want to interpret it, because that's what makes it special for you. My story doesn't have to be special for you. Your story does. And if I sing a song that makes you think of your story, now you're connected. Now you have something you love too.
That's true, because usually musicians have to connect with their audience, and there might be somebody in the audience saying, "Oh, not this song again." For instance, you might have seen this on the my Facebook page, but it's sort of like when someone mentions, "What song can't you absolutely stand?" I said, "Jump" by Van Halen. I hate that song, but that someone may connect with that. And others may say, okay, so this song means that I should be jumping from the bridge. You don't want people to get the wrong impression of that. But my song, okay, there is a song. I don't know if you're familiar with the 80s band Doug and the Slugs, but they have a great song called Day by Day, because it talks about day by day, I'm stronger, day by day, and when I listen to that, it makes my day go like, it's sort of like my song. Like everyone has their song. So you also have a song. Now, what is your creative process like, Greg? How do you write a song? How do you choose?
So that's the new EP, right? That's
okay.
There's a group of songs in there that these were songs I had written specifically for myself. I do a lot of, I still have an active band. We were 151. We are less members than we used to be. We're in the studio recording a new album right now. And I've written a lot with them, but those songs tend to be more hard rock focused. I influence them a lot, so I pull them back into like some soul and pop sometimes. But
it's excellent. Like Fly Away, it's like you have Not Okay, I Can't Stay, I Just May, No Delay, There's No Price You Could Pay, Going to Fly Away. Like, these are wonderful, wonderful lyrics. Standing in the hallway and I feel my nerves are so frayed. And everyone, Greg Hopper's music will be in the description down below of the video. All my words they convey, going to fly. This is great.
And really, so that one comes out of the music came first for that one, which is not usually the way I work, but I latched onto that kind of walking riff that led to the cadence of those words. And once the riff came, the melody was already there for me. So and then it started. So once a couple of words came out, which is also part of my process, right? So I usually try to latch on to something, whether it's a short phrase or a particular word, that can build the whole song for me. So once I've latched on to, and I believe it was Fly Away in that one, once I had that in my head at the end of the verse, everything else built itself, because then the story started to build itself. Like, why? What does that mean? Like, why am I flying away? What is the, and that song's really about that for me. And again, like up to interpretation. And I've heard some crazy interpretations of this one over the time it's been released. But the thought for me is that it's that point in a relationship where things have become just so volatile and you just don't know what to do. And it's just like, I've reached that point and I just want to be somewhere else. I just can't be here anymore. And that's that my nerves are so frayed and I just want to fly away.
Yeah, I can understand that. What creative challenges do you find when you write a song?
I'm very reflective, right? I like
Mm.
to spend some time at like late at night where I just kind of reflect back on things during the day. And that's sometimes words or phrases just come to me that really strike me as either poetic or lyrical. And I keep a list. So I have multiple lists on my phone where I'm just, these are lyric fragments, and they just kind of all fall in. And every once in a while I'll go back and look through the list and start pairing things and start fleshing things out. And then, like, if I'm working with my band, they'll bring me music and I'll listen, and then I'll go back and look at my list and say what fits that melody that I've got in my head now. And again, once I have a couple of words in place, everything starts to build itself out for me. But then I go back to like the first single on this EP was called June, and I had written the music. It was a complete song basically, and I knew that I wanted to try to write a song about a girl, about a woman. Like I was trying to focus on a person, on a name. I've never really tried that before. Where I blatantly picked someone's name and didn't try to make it like hidden in the lyric, or, so I love that. Because I don't know if you can see up behind me, I've got Elvis Costello on the wall, and I've always been a big fan of Elvis Costello and songs like Allison,
Yes.
Veronica.
Veronica's my favorite.
Yeah. See, and so I was like, well, I'd like to do that. And I listened to the song that I had already written a couple of times, and it just kept sounding like my guitar said June. And that was it. I was like, well, that's the song. And now I just have to write this song around it. And a lot of times that happens to me. If I've got the music already, I hear words in the music, right? And it's kind of a different take on what other people will tell you. Like I know Steven Tyler from Aerosmith, he likes to kind of just hum and say nonsense to get his melodies, and it's similar to that, right? It's like I'm hearing something in the music that sounds like words to me, and then it comes to me, and then I build on that and tell my story.
What do you think of sad songs and sad romantic songs? Like, I was going to ask you about Poor Fractured Atlas, which is one of my favorite songs from Elvis Costello. Then there's Amanda by Boston. Like,
oh yeah,
what do
great song.
Do you think sad songs should sound sad? Because people say there are sad songs that are just upbeat for me. You said June is about a girl, but the girl's name isn't June, right?
No, it is June. It is June, but it was of because the music sounded like the name June to me. It's funny. I know one June in this whole universe, and she was like, did you write that for me? Like, sure, because you're the only June I know. You win. So I think sad songs, for me, when I start out, sad songs sound sad, and I think that's okay. Like, I think that's, where I feel comfortable and genuine. But I love when I hear somebody who can take like say an upbeat 60s rhythm and write a sad song over it. Like, those things break my heart. They're so special to me, and I would love to do it. I'm still working on the ability.
Do you think the song June, or like, for instance, I don't know if you're familiar with our Canadian artist Corey Hart, but he has a great song called Always. And then talking about June, he has a really great song called 3rd of June. He's got some brilliant, Not Enough is another song. It's Not Enough. Now, writing a song for a girl. Now, I'm going to give you an instance. 30 years ago, a band called The Knack, they have a song called My Sharona, which was named after Sharona Alperin, his girlfriend, who's currently a real estate agent. Now trying to get her on the podcast, but she's so busy. But it'd be kind of interesting to ask her, what did you think about Doug Feiger writing a song about you? And what if it wasn't you, but a girl named Jennifer would have sound my Jennifer. I mean, I guess you take a
You
song on
need a
My
rhyme.
Sharona and yeah, and you would have to write a complete music around it. So I can't see My Sharona sounding any more special if her name was Jennifer. But
He needed a muse.
yeah,
He needed
so
a focus. Yeah.
would you want your audience who hear June or some other love song to get the same effect that you get when you wrote it? Do you want them to feel the same emotions? Oh, it must be about a girl that he, or do you
I
just don't
hope
care? What's your
well, I hope that they do, right? I want people to get it. Like I love when I get reviews from influencers and things
Mhm.
that tell me exactly what I was thinking when I wrote the song. There's something really really special for me when somebody gets it, right? When somebody hears that song and then can tell me what I was thinking and be completely right. That's fabulous. Like that's, as an artist, you just go, somebody gets it. Like they connected the way I wanted them to connect. But I also think it's super important for people to be able to connect on their own level. So if you listen to that song and you connect with it, but it's not for the same reason that I thought you would, that's just as special to me because it's special to you. Like that, again, as an artist, I'm spending most of my time going, how can I get more people to hear what I've done? Because I have this huge library of music that I want other people to hear. And that's the ultimate goal, is I just want people to hear it. Like, how can I get it in front of them? And so one of my methods is trying to connect at a certain level with people that they can take personally.
I can understand that. Now, what do you think of Linkin Park? 20 years ago, they had a album called Meteora, and the story goes is that they wanted to have 13 songs on it, but they could only fit 12, and that 13th song was just released called Lost. So, what do you feel about other musicians? Like you said, you have a ton of songs, but there's also like
Mhm.
Prince and Paul McCartney and Beatles and others who have like hundreds and songs ready that can be just released. And number one, why is it taking them a long time to release more Prince music? Or George Michael probably has 60 or 70 unreleased songs. And another part of this question is, why are lyrics copyright? I can understand why melodies are copyright, but why is it such a big issue with copyright infringement if you take a piece of music and put your own lyrics to it? Like for instance, I've heard Christian lyrics for Stairway to Heaven. They just instead of Stairway to Heaven, there's Stairway to Heaven to God and all that stuff, and it was beautiful. But what's your take on that?
I think, most of those are legal issues, right? It becomes a matter of ownership. Um, I I can tell you, like personally, as a working musician, it's hard to recover the cost of what you put into this, right?
Mm.
And to some degree, you never will. You'll never recoup financially everything that you've put into creating music and putting it out into the world. And so there's some protection there. There's some ownership that you want, that if someone's going to use it, that you get the credit that's due for creating it. Um, I know, like in this most recent instance where I put out this EP, the pieces almost fit. I took this on myself, right? So I had been at this point where I did all of these online videos of all these cover songs, and I had been writing for years during COVID. And I came out with some music that I really loved, right? I came out of that time with either some ideas or some fully fleshed items that I thought, these are great songs that I think I want to take these to the next level and like get them recorded, get them produced, get them out to people. And I kind of went down the road of, I'll do this myself. Like
Mm.
I think I kind of got the bug to, I bet you I could mix this. I bet you I could master this. I bet you I could, like take this on from soup to nuts kind of thing. And I also got the feeling like I want to take on the marketing and everything for the first time and see what I could do on my own. And there's a huge cost to this, right? A cost that I am positive I will never fully recover. And it's performed really well. It's performed better than I ever could have imagined. Like I think at current count, I'm over 35,000 plays on Spotify. Wow. I've basically had to rebuild a whole new base of followers because this is a solo project for me, not a band that I've been in previously. So whole new social media presence, whole new website and all. So all of the cost that goes into all of that, the marketing I've done over the last 7 months, everything that's gone into this, it started to recover, which I'm proud of in some sense. Like some of the production costs have already been covered from the early returns of digital plays and things. But I have a very strong feeling I will never recover the full cost of producing this, 4 songs, a 6-song EP, but 4 original songs that I wanted to put out into the world. And that's where those protections come in, right? Because now what if an artist comes along and sees that song and goes, well, okay, here's this independent artist. I really love what they did here. I'm just going to take this. I'll change up some of the lyrics. And then they put it out and make $1 million. Now, where's my protection in that if I don't have copyrights, if I don't have, some kind of legal recourse to the music I've created?
I totally agree with you. It brought me to mind, I don't know if you're familiar with, everyone's familiar with Red Hot Chili Peppers, but they have a song called Sick Love. And if you listen to it, you're thinking, wait a minute, this sounds like Benny and the Jets by Elton John. It is because Elton John helped them write it.
Right.
Anthony Kiedis and Elton John helped them write that song Sick Love and added a little bit of his own, because he owns the song catalog.
Because he can. Right.
If he wanted to, he can say, hey, I'm just going to give you a little bit of, Benny and the Jets melody and put your lyrics to it. I think that's great. But then you also listen to Flowers by Miley Cyrus, and you're thinking, that sounds like another song. And it is When I Was Your Man by Bruno Mars. And they're both linked to it. Like, I think he helped Miley Cyrus write it. So basically you can do that, but it's a legal issue if I suddenly said, hey, I have this really great song by Elton John called Benny and the Jets. Let's write a song around it. What do you think, Anthony?
Right.
Then that's a big issue right there.
But it's another thing to we wouldn't, musicians steal conceptual ideas all the time from other musicians because you hear things much like a writer or a movie maker is influenced by all the things they've seen and done over their time. Musicians are the same way. So we hear things. So you might not even intentionally go in and do something, but you get the tone of another person. You get you might have 3 or 4 notes in a run that perfectly match with somebody else's song. That happens all the time. And that's more of a show of the influence than it is like blatantly trying to take someone else's, concept and turn it into your own thing.
Yeah, there was a big legal issue with Beyonce and the song Halo, and Kelly Clarkson's song Already Gone. And if you listen to Already Gone and Halo, you're thinking it's the same song. Now, what happened is that when Beyonce released Halo, Kelly Clarkson couldn't release Already Gone because people saying they sound alike. So who's stealing what? So it's a big issue with music, and it's sort of like infighting. Like I even know for a fact that there's a lot of infighting. Said who has the better single, and it's not that at all. It's like I may not like a lot of Pink Floyd's music, but I do like that Miley Cyrus song Flowers, but I don't like any of her other songs. I mean,
music is taste. Music is so personal. because it touches us, on some emotional level, that you should be free to listen to whatever you want. I know that when I was a kid, I loved, the sappy classic rock, ballads and stuff. And that,
Like Aha and all that stuff. Yeah.
oh, well, even farther back, like, when
Split
I
Ends.
loved like Steely Dan, but I also
Yes.
liked,
Yeah.
Thompson Twins and things like
Oh,
that.
me too.
And people were looking at me like, no, this isn't what we listen to,
music.
and
That's not
yeah,
music.
exactly. And, so you shouldn't shun people for liking what they like.
No,
you can,
but it doesn't make sense. Like people, like I know people say they love Tool.
Mhm.
And I'm like, you like Tool? Yeah, it's a great band. Okay, so the lead singer goes, like, what did he say there? Why isn't it just real lyrics? Just if you're gonna sing a song, sing the song. Don't go in front and go, hey, I like that band. And Rob Zombie and all. Like, I'm not big into heavy metal, but stuff like that. I mean, Ozzy Osbourne has a really nice song called Dreamer. Now, I'm not a Black Sabbath fan, but Dreamer's a gorgeous tune. And
Ozzy has a very special voice that's not really,
yeah.
It's not harsh.
Mhm.
he's very melodic. He's got very smooth tone. He fits into a weird cat. Now he's crazy. He gets out there and like, he's got a stage act, right? He's wants you to know that he's somebody you should be paying attention to. But what he's singing isn't always. I always come back to Kiss with this too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kiss's music, if you go right back to the beginning, it's so melodic. It even gets a little poppy at times, but they're putting on a stage act that wouldn't make you think that's what they're doing, right? You go back to their early stuff, it sounds like disco, but they but they look like Kiss. So it's hard to in your mind differentiate those things and you just say, oh, if you don't listen to them, you go, oh, Kiss, that's like a heavy metal band. Well, no, they kind of have a softer side of rock a lot of times.
Do you think Tony Iommi, one of the co-founders of Black Sabbath, do you think he knew that his group would become as famous as it is?
No, I don't think so. But I always Tony was like one of my heroes when I was a kid. Like he just had, he and I get sometimes when I write little riffs and things, people say, oh, that sounds so much like old Black Sabbath, like Tony Iommi. And I'm like, well, it's hard for me to get away from sometimes because I get his phrasing in my head and it sticks with me.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think so. I don't think he ever knew what he was getting himself into.
No. One of the oddest things I was at a karaoke and there was this woman who sounded a lot like Angus Young or I think the newest one is Brian. Is it Brian, the lead
Brian
singer
Johnson.
of BC? Yeah. And she sounded just like the lead singer, and she had this really raspy voice singing Highway to Hell by AC/DC. And in the background was this elderly couple celebrating their 65th wedding anniversary, slow dancing to it. I'm like, this is weird. They're either deaf or it's like, you can't dance to Highway to Hell. And that's what they were doing.
You can dance to anything if you just try. That's
But Greg,
dancing's a state of mind.
Yeah, that's true. Greg, do you agree that it is very important to learn, study, and understand old music and music history?
For me, it is. I love it. I mean, I want to know more. I'm a big fan of rock autobiographies and pop autobiographies. I've read a million of them or listened to them on Audible and things now. So yeah, and one of my favorite books that I did was the one from Questlove. I don't know if I can't remember the title off the top of my head, but it's this whole history of music that he did that is fabulous. It was just a great read. And he's kind of a historian of music and really can get into some details. And because he's a producer, he's worked with so many people now that he has behind the scenes information. And it's a fabulous read. But yeah, I think the history of music without it, look, I want to do new things. I want music to progress. I do love new music. I listen to I still listen to independent radio stations and try to get in everything new that I can into my head because it matters. Tastes have changed, but they're built off of what we've done before. As far as you can get from what you love is still in the root of music that we've always made. So there's always a connection, and it's nice to make those connections and see where things came from.
I totally agree with you. Just recently, I don't know if you've seen the Abbey Road album. In the background
Yeah,
is the guy standing on the sidewalk. Well, he came forward and said, "I'm that guy."
I saw
So
that. I saw that.
that's kind of
It's amazing.
interesting when
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of interesting. Someone comes forward and say, "You know that Black Sabbath album, or you know that, well, you know that way in the corner left is a guy that's standing there against the wall with his girlfriend. Well, that's me," stuff like that, or whatever. Um, if you could take along with a famous musician, who would it be?
Oh, well, there's a million. Easy choice for me is always Elvis Costello because I'm a huge fan. But if I was gonna go living or dead, probably Prince. Like that would
Hmm.
be amazing. I've heard such great things about him as a person too. He just, so all yeah. There, I could just keep naming names though because I would just love to get that time with any of my heroes or people that have made music that I love. I loved the Phil Collins book that I read
Hmm.
was great. The Elton John, there's just some icons of my time that it would be an honor. It'd be an honor to meet, even just to talk to. It'd be a whole nother thing to get to play music with them.
Yeah, actually, I wouldn't mind playing with Toto. My favorite album was Hydra.
Oh yeah.
Um, I love Toto. I was so obsessed with the Hydra album. I love the song 99. Love it. And I'm not sure if they wrote it about a girl. No, I think it was written about a girl named 99 or something like that. I thought it was written about 99 from Get Smart, but but it wasn't. But yes, and you're mentioning Elvis Costello. Well, I would love to sing alongside of Josh Groban, maybe Andrea Bocelli. So
Oh
I'm sort
wow.
of like that,
Yeah.
or like if Elton John or Billy Joel said, "How would you like to do one of my duets?" I'd say yes, and then I would choose a song like maybe Honesty, play it with them or something. So if someone like Dee Snider from Twisted Sister, or well, I don't basically think Alice Cooper would do this to you, but let's use Dee Snider. If Dee Snider came up to you and said, "Okay, Greg, I want you to play tonight. We're going to be playing the bass guitar. We're going to be playing this song," and you have such a good time, but in the end, he says, "I didn't like the way you played. I don't like this." How would that make you feel if another guitarist, another musician said, "I think you don't. Where did you learn to play like that? This is how you play," or whatever. Have you ever had
It
that
would.
negative?
Oh yeah. I mean, you can't. I don't think you can be a musician doing this as long as I have without somebody telling you they didn't like the way you do things. Um, it's tough, right? If I know that I've done a good job, what I think is a good job, it's usually I can take that a little better. So if I came out of that knowing I did a really great job, in my opinion, I would be able to let that roll off my back at least a little bit easier than if I knew that I didn't do a good job. And then it would be hard because he'd be right. and I would be disappointed in myself as it was. But I've had these moments. The internet is a rough place some
Mm.
days to put yourself out there and to let people hear what you've done. And yeah, I've had videos that went a little more viral than I would have liked because of somebody making a bad comment about it, and
Oh,
or like, oh, he's singing in key, but I really hate the way he sings. Like
no.
that's like what I don't know what to take away from that. Like, so You told me yes. You just don't like me. That's that's a hard thing to walk away and go, okay, I know I'm not for everybody. I know that my vocal tone is not everybody's cup of tea, but I did what I was supposed to do. I sang in key. I knew all the words. I, I put my heart into it. But I think that's why, for me, trying to stay to the music that I feel most genuine about is important, because I can take that a lot better if I know I had my heart in it. But it's a lot harder if it was like somebody else's cover song and I was just kind of mimicking something that, yeah, okay, you might not have liked that because I wasn't into it either, and I probably shouldn't have done it.
Yeah, I'm like, I listen to a song which I like, and if it has a vibrato or I like the way they sound, it's good. But sometimes, like, I'm not a big Bob Dylan fan because he's like, hey, man, going to sing it the way he sounds. I'm like, I don't like that. Or I know I shouldn't say anything, and God rest his soul, but the lead singer of Tragically Hip, I didn't like the
Yeah.
way he sounded. But if it's good tune, and I love to listen to the tune, like I'm not a big fan of Miley Cyrus, but I love Flowers. But I wouldn't
Yeah.
go out and buy a Miley Cyrus album. But I do
Right.
like
Right.
I do like Tim McGraw, and most people don't like Reba McEntire, and I love Reba McEntire. And I'm a big Bengals fan, but people don't like the way Susanna Hoff sings, and
Oh,
it's to each his own.
she's the best. I love
Yeah,
the
she's the
Bengals.
best,
Yeah.
definitely. Um, what do you think of the music industry? Do you think it's being destroyed by the internet and AI, or do you think it can only improve?
I hope it improves. I think it's a hard place to be right now. And I think I learned a lot over the last couple of years with the research I've been doing. Trying to get a new album out, and it's the problem. I think these days is if you want to do it, you need to put in all of that work yourself, because by the time that you've put in all the work and made yourself successful and really built your base, anybody who comes along and says, hey, I'd love to sign you to a record contract, there's not a lot there for you. There's not a lot more they're going to do that you haven't. They're just going to piggyback on what you've already been successful in. And that's not what it used to be, right? What it used to be was you get discovered. Well, you're not. By the time you're discovered these days, you've already done all the hard work for yourself. You've already made a success of yourself. Like you,
Yeah.
you got to be very careful about moving beyond that.
Greg, I think you're spot on. If you check my episodes, there's one named Steve Maxworthy, and he used to be in a band called Night Soccer back in the 80s, and he talks about that whole issue about getting contracts, signing it, and everything that happened for them, and all the money that they didn't receive. And just because you
Yeah.
sign a recording contract for this much, you don't get that much. You
Right.
don't get 13 million. I'm going to have you sign a record contract for $10 million. You don't get $10 million. He just opened up my eyes to just how the music industry is. Next to the Amy Winehouse song that I heard, which is her voice and which is the music. And she sounds just like the same one singing Valerie, which is my favorite song, which I bet if you like, I've heard many covers of Valerie. I think you could do that
Yeah.
one.
I think
Um,
I think I've played that one for female singer before. I've
but
I've sat in and as accompaniment on that a couple of times. Yeah.
yeah, but this Amy Winehouse song I heard was not Amy Winehouse. It wasn't done by an artificial intelligence. Everything.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so that means they could release albums containing songs from an AI, and who gets paid for the song? The programmer?
Right. It becomes a whole
Like,
new legal issue, right? If you're
that's what I mean. Yeah.
think about poor John Fogerty,
Oh,
his
yeah.
whole, the bad record contract with Creedence. Then when he comes back and does his thing in the 80s with, what was the song that put me in coach? Oh, center field. So he comes
Oh,
back with that album, and he gets sued for sounding like John Fogerty. That was essentially the case against him. Was
but it
his
was
old
John
record
Fogerty.
company. His old record company came back and said, "You sound too much like John Fogerty. We're suing you because we own the rights to you," basically. And it took him, and he went into a deep depression again, and it took him like another 10 or 12 years to win that case. Like that's the kind of thing we have to defend against, as an artist. You need to own your own music. You need to own the rights to it, and you need to, have some control. Sorry, go ahead.
Is that the reason why Creedence Clearwater Revival aren't getting together for a concert because of this whole issue, or is it because of John Fogerty himself? Plus I think is an infighting with him and his brother. I don't think they get along, and it's the same like the whole Oasis, like the whole two brothers, Noel Gallagher and Liam.
Noel and Liam, yeah.
No,
like
I think if you're in a band with a sibling or whatever, you're going to end up with problems.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I think early on, John had to stop just because he did go into a depression. He did lose the rights to all of his own music, and he couldn't perform anymore his own music, and that was tough.
It is tough. I know. Greg, a couple more questions for you, and then we're going to end the stream, but we really appreciate you being here, and I've really learned a lot from you.
I love this. It's been great.
Me too. Very inspirational. I could keep you on for 5 hours. I got like 150 questions here. Greg, if you could change one thing in the music industry, what would it be?
That's a good one. Right now, I think it would be that artists would get paid better for streaming. I think, as nice as it is to allow more artists to be heard by opening up, these platforms for streaming, what you've done is basically say you can share your music and we're not going to really pay you for it. I know that, I've had things go out there with, you get 10,000 streams and you get paid,
$60,
a couple dollars. Yeah. You get and you go, and somebody goes, wow, look at all the, in a month that thing did so great. And when are you going to quit your day job kind of thing? And you're like, well, as soon as $7 pays my mortgage, we'll talk about quitting the day job. Yeah.
Well, I guarantee, Greg, that if Greg Hopper showed up in the early 80s, not only would you be selling millions of copies of Fly Away, but you'd be making your money because each artist got like 5 cents per 45 single. And if you sold 2 million copies, you get 5 cents times 2. It adds up. But now on Spotify, if you get, what is it? And somebody who actually worked for Spotify or whatever told me that it's 1 million streams, you get $5,000 or something like that. But
there's calculators out there, and it's so convoluted because it's really depends on where you live. Like, where was the listener? Like, were they in one of the prime areas for payment? Were they off in a non-prime area? Like, it really affects things, and it's amazing how poorly you can be paid for a lot of listens.
Yes, everyone. Greg Hopper's information, music will be down below. We're so happy, Greg, that you showed up, and I'm so happy that everything seemed to have worked out. So I think I figured out the problem. And I really love this. I could keep you here all day. I don't really want to go back. Everyone, Greg Hopper Music, he has this EP out called
The Pieces Almost Fit.
And it's a song called Fly Away. And excellent singer-songwriter. And one part of advice for the listeners, if they want to get into music, what do you tell them?
Oh, I think that the best thing to do is still to go to a local music shop, find an instructor, and spend some face-to-face time with somebody. If you want to learn guitar, go meet somebody and have them get you started. There's a lot of resources for after that, but that face-to-face time is what gets you motivated and keeps you motivated. Same thing for vocal training. I truly believe anybody can be a singer. Doesn't mean everyone's going to like you, but anyone can be a singer. And vocal training with a vocal instructor can make you that singer. So yeah, face-to-face time.
I think the best part about a singer is the fact that they have a vibrato. No, I have a vibrato, and actually people ask me if they could be taught how to, and I'm saying you can't teach somebody to have a vibrato. You either have it or you don't. But I love it when a person, like especially sopranos, and you should look up Ellen Williams. She's a soprano, and Greg, just listening to her voice, it's gorgeous. And I'm like, not very many people have a voice like that. But I'm a tenor myself, and I do have a vibrato. But when I hear voices like yours and singers like Elton John, I'm like, a lot better than mine. I just listen and say, you know what? I can't do any good.
I'm more of a baritone, and I love to try to stretch myself as high as I can. And as low as I can. I like to do some, real low things if I can with like, ZZ Top was always a favorite. They do some things where they get real low and
Dusty Hill. Yeah.
That's
recently
fun.
passed. And Brad Roberts from Crash Test Dummies. You ever heard his voice?
Oh,
very low like this.
Very low.
Like very low. It's like outrageous.
Not natural basses though. Just a low baritone. Yeah.
What a wonderful, wonderful interview. Thank you, Greg, for joining us this afternoon. We're so happy to have you on our podcast. And I think everyone, just great interview. Really loved it and really appreciate it. Thank you. So we're going to end the stream. Thanks, everybody, for watching.
Thanks,
Greg.